Well, you want to go to Dick and Prosperity?
Yeah, I believe so. Let's go to Dick. Hey,
Hi,
Dick, how are you?
Hi, fellas. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I don't know if this falls in the category of being odd. It's odd to me, maybe not to you or anybody else around here. I live on the lake, west end of the lake, about a mile below the confluence of the Big and Little Saluda. And the other day I was looking out, and I saw what I thought was a whole flock of seagulls that were dogging it, not chasing the bait that the loons were kicking around. But it looked strange, so I got my field glasses out and looked at it. And they're about 600 yards away from me. And much to my surprise, it turned out to be about 15 or so white pelicans.
Yeah, there you go.
That, to me, I see them out when you go out west in different places like that. I've never noticed them out here. Is that strange or not?
Well, that's a wonderful sighting for the middle part of the state.
It is. And, Patrick, we've... that sighting, and again, someone not making assumptions about white birds that they see and getting their field glasses out, Dick, wonderful sighting. And we've had those birds first appearing in the Ace Basin, probably about a decade ago, hanging around, and then they started spreading up the coast a little bit. We've actually had reports of them from Lake Keowee. And again, folks, I mean, that's a pretty unmistakable bird. Huge bird.
Well, 10-foot wingspan is hard to
Well,
miss.
I've seen it down the coast when I'm fishing, Cape Remain National Wildlife.
Exactly.
Yeah. Through there. But I've never encountered even one on the lake, and here was a whole mess of them out there.
Well, and
paddling along.
Yeah, Dickie, what you could be seeing is migratory birds that are headed back early out to the Midwest. I mean, usually we see these things show up in places like South Dakota and Montana in April. So maybe they're
out at Grand Tetons and Yellowstone and those places.
Sure, yeah. And it's an incredible bird, and it's another really nice kind of success story, and I think it's worth taking a little bit of time to talk about the white pelican, because it's different from the brown pelicans we see on the coast, Dick, in that they fish very differently.
They fish differently.
Yeah,
they're lazy.
They're lazy.
Yeah,
that's right. If you're that big, if you're the heaviest, largest flying bird in North America, like the white pelican, you don't want to go splashing your head down in the water, so they fish while they're swimming. So while they're floating along, they dip their bills into the water, and they tend to fish cooperatively.
Yes.
So you'll see 5 to 10 of them in a row kind of chasing little schools of mummichog or sheep's head minnows and dipping their bill down into the middle of the school to pick up the fish. And it's very different from the technique of splash diving, dive bombing that the brown pelican practices. And that's a bird that, like Drew said, showed up, I would say, again for us in South Carolina, because historically they probably were here.
Yeah, it's, again, just a bird that showed up in small numbers at first and has increased. It's not a breeding population of birds, but you wonder, is that bird the nearest breeding population for us was probably Gulf Coast, I would think.
Yeah.
Those, and not large numbers of birds, but most of those birds, like you said, Patrick, intermountain west.
Intermountain or western edge of the Great Plains is a huge, and they're really part of the success of the recovery of white pelicans has been based upon what we've learned about their biology and how they respond to stressors on their nesting range. So when you go out to South Dakota and go to LaCree National Wildlife Refuge, you can view the Pelican Island there, but you can't get anywhere near to it because one person, one dog, anybody setting foot on that island, and the birds are very, very sensitive, and they're gone. So a lot of the problem we had with recovering that bird was based on disturbance at their nesting sites.
Could I ask you a question about pelicans in general?
Sure.
I have heard different stories. You watch a pelican down along the coast, and they dive bomb into the water. And I've heard one story that they are trying to shock the fish that they're after, stun them, and then gobble them up. The other is that they're diving in and do more like a seagull type of thing, or have their beak open. What is the true nature of what they're doing when they dive in?
Well, whether or not they're trying to shock fish, there are probably some fish that are shocked, but I don't think it's any kind of purposeful attempt to shock fish, because sometimes you see pelicans catching relatively large fish. that aren't likely to be shocked. But the amazing thing is kind of this adjustment that birds have to make for refraction. And the fish, if you've ever tried, as a kid, I remember, in puddles or in creeks trying to spear a fish, try it.
Right.
And watch how successful you are. So, those birds, if you watch slow motion of a pelican going in the water, its beak opens soon after. If it went into the water, especially from a great height with its beak open, it stands to rip its jaw off.
Wrapped around his head.
And occasionally you'll see a pelican washed up that's made that mistake. And
I see them with broken necks once in a while. What appears to be broken neck down along the...
Just as gannets do. Northern gannets occasionally that are just these darts going in the water. Occasionally you'll find a northern gannet washed up, and it could be a number of things, but they do break their necks. And so there's a lot of risk into diving at heights into water, because that surface becomes kind of a hardened surface the higher up you are and the more velocity that you have. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so they actually do open just at the right time and do try to capture it with their beak.
Most of them do. Most of them do. Occasionally we find one that doesn't.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I appreciate the input. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
I saw white pelicans in West Virginia a couple years ago.
Are you kidding me?
No, at Harper's Ferry.
Yeah,
it was the weirdest thing. This bee comes over, look up in the sky, it's white pelicans on the move.
Well, but Patrick, that's something that our listeners should be on the lookout for, looking skyward, because white pelicans, unlike brown pelicans, tend to be soarers. So at first glance, you may even think, wow, look at that wood stork. But then, because in profile, the wings, will look similar, but then a closer look and you see this neck pulled back, this huge orangish beak, and of course these shortened legs, and they will soar with vultures, and they'll soar really, really high. So, be on the lookout. And now all over the state with these reports from the Midlands, with the reports from the upstate, and now and of course our historical low country.
Really cool. See populations grow. I love it.
It is amazing.
I love it.